I call Adam Jurgay.
Very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'm grateful to the gentleman for his pithy contribution to the debate. As I'm sure, Madam, finishing too early is not always a good thing. But anyway, Madam Deputy Speaker, I would like to start by extending my condolences to my constituent from back home in Newcastle Lyme, and a great friend of ours, Rosie Monkman. Her mother died in County Waterford in the Public Island yesterday, and I want to pay tribute to her mother, Mrs. Morrissey, to Rosie, to her husband, and to their sons and all the family. And also, Madam Speaker, since there's so many pithy contributions before me and we have till 5 o'clock, I'd like to place on record my respect for Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. As we discussed in Leaders' Questions, next Tuesday will mark the 100th anniversary of Her late Majesty's birth, and so it's a fitting opportunity for us to remember, reflect and give thanks for a long life of service to our United Kingdom and the Commonwealth. This is an important debate, and I hope people don't think that the number of colleagues here means that people don't take it seriously, but I am grateful to all members of the Modernisation Committee from across the House for their work and for taking on the most Herculean task of making this place fit for the 21st century and creating the best means through which we can deliver for the people who sent us here. I will focus my comments on page 2, part 2, procedures and processes, and within that page 2, page 25, page 30 and page 11 of the response. I would like to acknowledge the work of my right honourable friend, the member for Manchester Central, for all that she did while she served this House as leader. I should declare an interest, I suppose, I'm her PPS, and I acknowledge the right honourable gentleman from Tynemouth for picking up the baton and for running with it. Now, my office will tell you, Madam Deputy Speaker, as will my wife and family, that in many ways I'm an analogue politician in a digital age, or now AI age. I much prefer the written word and signing those letters by hand, over putting some app on my phone to record 30 seconds of myself speaking into a screen. And so in many ways it would seem odd that I've taken such a close interest in both this report, the recent report from the Procedures Committee on proxy voting, and more generally the measures being taken to open our national parliament to all who work here and to take it to the 21st century. Like my honourable friend from Harlow, I broadly like the customs and practices of this place. They're age-old and they broadly work. Indeed, they've been adopted by nations across the Commonwealth who develop and have developed their own Westminster systems in the Caribbean, Australia, Canada, and on the African continent too. So I wouldn't be one advocating for radical changes that would change how we do things, but I am willing to advocate for sensible and respectful changes that allow us to do our jobs properly and more effectively. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, everyone has good days and bad days at work, and at home. That is the nature of the world that we live in. It's always been that way, and that isn't going to change. At work, some things go well. In our case, sometimes you win, then you hope you keep on winning. And it's those victories that allow us to serve in this place, and what a pleasure and privilege it is to do so. But as we speak for our people, as we tackle injustices wherever we find them, and as we work every day to get things done, no member of this House should be forced to choose between family and doing our job, honouring the trust of local people who sent us here and holding ministers to account. The fact that I was forced to make such a choice on Friday the 20th of June 2025 is something that will stay with me forever. And it remains, I'm sad to say, the worst day I've had in this job. Now, my wife received a phone call on the 15th of June to tell her that her father had taken unwell after many years of living with Parkinson's, and it appeared the following Tuesday that he was reaching the end of his life. And if we want to say goodbye, we had to get there as soon as possible, and so we did. On Friday the 20th of June, this House was considering the Assisted Dying Bill, an issue of the most importance to all of us and to our constituents too. Now, whatever our views, we all wanted to have our voices heard and to be able to take part in this most important of debates. I asked my whips if a proxy could be sorted, so I could represent my constituent and also be with my family. I was told that a proxy would not be possible because it was a private member's bill, and so the only option available to me was to seek my own pairing arrangement with another colleague in the House. To say I was cross, Madam Deputy Speaker, is an understatement, but I took on board that response and went on my way to find my own pair. It was clear at that time that my father-in-law wasn't going to get better, and so I asked colleagues in my party and on the opposition benches if they would pair with me. I asked the sponsor of the bill. She said she wasn't able to help. I asked another colleague who, when I said, and I quote, I won't name the person, but I think it's important that I say this, that she couldn't help me because she was doing numbers for the pro side, and so she'd be gleeful that I couldn't be there because there's one less vote against the bill. But for the stress and hassle caused, no colleague should be forced to find their own pair when a loved one is dying. That is insane and, frankly, inhumane. If a teacher can't be at work, you get a supply teacher. And we all remember the days when the supply teacher was in charge. How that can't happen in the mother of parliaments is inexplicable. We've got to get a grip of the proxy vote system, Madam Deputy Speaker. Nobody wants to let people off or change how we do things in a radical way, as I said at the beginning of my remarks. We don't want to stop people being here to vote, but we need to be sensible, compassionate and respectful. We need to get a grip because nobody should be forced to experience what I had to. Having failed to get a pair, despite trying really hard to do so, and the fact that my father-in-law was still on the journey to the end of his life, and having spoken to my family, I came to vote on that Friday. Because if I hadn't, my constituents wouldn't have been represented in that debate. As I left this place to go back to my wife and my in-laws, my wife called me to tell me her father had died. I'll never forget that phone call, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I only received that phone call because I wasn't able to get a proxy, nor able to get a pair. So that remains the worst day I've had in this job. The leader, the shadow leader and the Right Honourable Member for North East Fife all referenced that all members should be able to do their jobs properly, and that's true. But not at the expense of our family commitments, not least as a loved one reaches the end of their life. It's not lost on me, Madam Deputy Speaker, that we were voting on assisted dying, but I was given no assistance by this House and powerful people in it to do my job and to be with my family when they needed me most. Now, nobody wants a sob story, I fully accept that, but this is my experience, and I hope that we will look at how we can do things differently so nobody has to experience what we have. We need to look at the eligibility of members being able to seek a proxy, because in my view the current eligibility is far, far too narrow and needs to be looked at. And I read the report from the Procedures Committee, and I hope that together the Procedures and Modernisation Committees will be able to get us to the right place and sooner rather than later. But Madam Deputy Speaker, I say this to be helpful, not to seek sympathy, but to ensure that we finally make our Parliament compassionate and fit for purpose.
Yeah, yeah.